This week on Jared Scott Outdoors, I'm with the fishing game, in particular Bret High, as he performs surgery on several cutthroat trout and brown trout. Now this isn't the same thing as when they tagged the rainbows for the incentive program. Today it's much more involved. The trout that are part of this study will be implanted with radio transponders that will help the fishing game monitor them much more closely, hopefully giving them information that will help in the management of the Yellowstone cutthroat trout as well as the rainbows and the browns. It's quite interesting, so allow me to show you all about it. Welcome to Jared Scott Outdoors, your source in the field for local outdoor news. The day started out meeting Bret High and Dan Drake at the boat ramp with the jet boat that helps us run up and down the river finding the fish we needed over several miles of river. The water's very low right now as the reservoirs are still being filled up in preparation for the spring and summer irrigation season, making a jet boat about the only possible motorized boat that can maneuver through the shallow spots. While the fish surgeries is the main focus of the day, first I'm going to show you the end result of the whole process. Then I'll go back and show you the beginning and how it all works. While Dan took care of a few other things, Bret and I ran downstream to check on the fish that had surgery the day before and were in holding tubes while they recovered. Cruising on downstream a mile or two, it's easy to get caught up in the beauty of the river and forget that we were actually here to work today. As nice as this spring has been so far, the cold temperatures on the river early in the morning still required us to bundle up against the chilly wind. After just a few minutes, we pulled up to the first group of fish we needed to release. They had spent the night inside these tubes.
We did surgeries on these fish to put in the radio tags, so we hold them overnight, make sure they're going to be okay before we release them with that tag. It's quite an investment. And we want to make sure that tag is recording accurate data. So we'll just let them go, make sure they swim off and look okay. That one looks good. There's all different kinds of tags for fish that we use, and it just depends on what your goals and objectives are. The neat thing about these radio tags is that we can know where at least the tag is at, presumably the fish, at any time we go out and look for it. Most other tags you have to catch the fish again to get information off the tag or have it get real close to an antenna. These tags we can pick up from about a half mile away, and that's the true advantage of the radio tag, is you can really get detailed movements of these fish as they move around. There's a brown trout. He swam off like a bullet. We're looking at movement behavior of these fish. That's why we're using radio tags, is we can get at their behavior patterns. And we are focused primarily on cutthroat, but we do tag a few browns and rainbows as well. So 80% of the tags we put in cutthroat, 15% brown trout, 5% in the rainbows. Little cutthroat. Ooh, there's a nice cutthroat. Yeah. There she goes.
With those fish released, I stored the empty tubes in the boat. These would be used again later in the day with new fish. More fish were released in different sections of river. While this container was a bit different, it accomplished the same purpose. The only difference is that it could hold more fish if needed. Netting the 3 different fish, Bret released each one, noting that they all seemed to be doing well after yesterday's surgeries.
Little guy, this one has a motion sensitive tag. So So that tag sends, if it stops moving for 24 hours, it'll send a different signal. That way we're supposed to know, okay, something wrong with that fish.
Here's a fish. Holy cow.
I think he's ready to go.
With all the fish from yesterday's surgeries released, we met up with a couple other guys that were getting ready to head off down the river to locate all the radio tagged fish in about a dozen miles worth of river downstream. While Bret's been tagging new fish this spring, they tagged 326 fish last year as well, and it was the job of these two guys to go find out where they were and record the GPS location from each one.
You might have something on two.
Yeah, there's a bunch on two right here.
Here we go.
Go ahead and lock it.
So 73.
In fact, from right here in the boat ramp, the telemetry equipment was able to locate 3 of the tagged fish, 73, 78, and 79. So before they left, the data, location, and fish identification numbers were recorded. Right now, they were just looking for general locations of where the fish were along the river, but as the spawn progressed, they would really nail down the fish's precise locations.
So the crew in the raft, they're going down the river and they're locating the fish that we've placed radio tags in previously, either last year or this year. They're going to float down with that antenna that picks up the signal. They have a receiver that understands the signal so they can figure out which code, which fish that tag belongs to. So they're locating the fish, marking it on a map so we can analyze their movements and what habitat they're using and just learn more about what they're doing through the year.
Now that you've seen the end result of the surgeries, let's start with the beginning and how it's all done. First off, we have to catch some fish, and not just any fish. Bret has already mapped out the entire river, dividing it into mile stretches. He wants to tag fish in each of the mile stretches so they get a good sample of the entire river. He also wants to make sure that we're getting a specific amount of smaller trout as well as larger trout so they can get information on all the age groups. As he mentioned, it's not just cutthroats. A small percentage of the fish tagged will be browns and rainbows. With that said, Bret already had on paper exactly what kind and size of fish we needed to catch in the next mile stretch of river. In most cases, it was 2 to 4 fish. Now how to catch them? Well, the easiest way to get the kind of fish you want is to use electricity. In the past, I've shown you how they use electrofishing to tag the rainbows for the incentive program. In that case, we caught every rainbow we could find. In this situation, we have to be much more selective, just finding the few fish needed for each area. With the electrofishing gear all hooked up, we were off. Bret controls when the electricity is turned on and guides us into the location he knows holds fish. It was Dan and I's job to net them as they swam toward the current. The electrical current makes them swim toward the electrodes hanging in the water. Whitefish seem particularly susceptible to the electrical current and are often stunned by it. As the netters, Dan and I have to try to identify each fish as they come near the surface and try to net only those that we need.
I don't know if it's any bigger or not. It might be about the same size. It's another in-betweener.
That's a good one. That's a big one.
Is that a bigger one?
That's why it's big, I think.
Yeah, that's a good one there. That looks like a big one. Oh! Let's see, that's a good one. That's a big one. I think that's a good one. So we just need 2 smalls. None of those are smalls. 2 smalls? We need 2 smalls.
Once we had all 3 of those fish caught, we headed to shore to set up our own surgical center in the field. Anyone that knows Bret will find out that he can jerry-rig anything. He's actually created quite the mobile surgical center for the fish with just a cooler, bilge pump, and a lot of ingenuity.
A little bit more right there.
Getting it all set up, Dan added a bucket of fresh water. Bret then added a sedative to the water that would calm the fish down.
The drugs, give them a little happy juice. So I'll need someone that will keep water flowing over their gills and someone else recording data.
Once everything was ready, Dan went and fished out the first cutthroat. Once placed in the water, it would take about 2 minutes for the sedative to take effect. I recorded the time in the water, and the pit tag and transmitter codes were recorded as well. Using iodine, Bret kept all the instruments clean.
Okay. He is 299 millimeters. And he weighs 233 grams.
While we waited for the medicine to take effect, a length and weight was recorded on each fish. About the time we had everything recorded, the cutthroat was now sedated and ready for the procedure. We could tell the fish was ready when it went belly up. Dan made sure the fish had oxygen using a bilge pump to keep water flowing over the gills.
That groove director acts like a shield so I don't poke the guts. Stick in pit tag. Thread the antenna through. Stitch him up.
Okay with the water?
Yeah, you're good. Bit of iodine. Okay, we're done.
With it all stitched up, the cutty was placed back in some fresh water where we could keep an eye on it and make sure it came out of sedation okay.
Another fish?
Another fish.
Since you probably didn't catch everything that just happened, let me show you another fish that's a bit larger and easier to see. With the brown trout sedated, first Bret made a small incision in its belly, just through the skin and muscle layer. Then he slides a needle guard down along the stomach wall. This protects the fish from the needle that Bret would insert up against the needle guard and out the incision. Now he has a hollow needle that he can slide the transmitter wire through and out the lower end of the fish. With that done, he pulls the transmitter into the belly cavity. And that's it. With that done, he proceeds to sew up the incision with 3 to 4 stitches, just like your family doctor would stitch up a bad cut. The fish is then rubbed down with some iodine over the incision and needle entry point, and it's put back in the fresh water to recover. As you can see, these 2 cutthroat trout have already recovered from their procedures. The next step in the process is getting them in the tubes that will be their home for the next 24 hours. Each group of fish is then taken to the same stretch of river they were caught in, where the tubes will be tied off overnight. With that group done, we headed upstream to another mile of river to catch the next fish that would be part of the study. At that point, we start the entire process over again. In between groups of fish, we did take a short break for lunch. Bret always keeps a very well-used Camp Chef stove on the boat, and it proved perfect for cooking up a hot meal. Over the course of the day, we would end up working 6 different sections of river. Tomorrow, Bret will be back up to check on them just like we did this morning. As long as the fish all look good, he'll release them. With the day coming to a close, it was time to head off the river. I just came for the day, but Bret would be back. He's already tagged around 400 fish so far and has many, many more fish to go. With the help of other Fish and Game employees as well as volunteers, they'll be keeping track of all the tagged fish for many months to come. With time, these fish will be transmitting important data that will help in the management of the incredible fishery we have on the South Fork. and will no doubt give information that will help in the recovery of the native Yellowstone cutthroat all across the region. Tune in next week at the same time for another episode of Jared Scott Outdoors.